I'm Alexandria Kenyon, spiritual mentor and your host of Conscious Connection, a podcast where we create space for humanness within spiritual development. Me and my When She Feels Like It co-host, Kimber Klein, are giving you a real behind-the-scenes look of what it is actually like to be on a spiritual development path. We will talk with coaches, healers, and other spiritual leaders who are making impact, as well as our clients who will share their real-life experience as they practice owning their intuitive gifts. Stick around for unfiltered conversations that may or may not poke fun at New Age spirituality, giving you permission to show up imperfectly human. Hi. Hey, everybody. This is Alexandria Kenyon, and I'm coming back to Conscious Connection, the podcast. Just me today. I woke up and I realized that I was in my low of my crash wave. Talking about human design. I'm talking about for anyone who has a defined emotional solar plexus on your chart to the far right. It's a little triangle to the far right. If that's colored in, you have emotional authority. And what that means is you ride the waves of your experience, experiencing the highs and lows before you make a decision. And so each gate, the numbers, they're colored in, have a collective, or they have a frequency of the way that the energy moves through the solar plexus. So I have gate 41, or I have gate 30 coming out of the solar plexus to create the channel of recognition. So that's 4130. And this is the channel of recognition, 4130, an intense emotional energy to get something into motion and self-expression after you've experienced deeply. You may feel to share your experience with others, not necessarily verbally, but through an art form. Okay, so let's talk about the different waves. There's a tribal wave. This is the mildest of the three waves. This wave is pretty chill. It's gentle. Most people probably don't even notice its flow. But it often works like a ratchet or like an emotional outburst. It's that person who is pretty even kill, like, okay, it can be emotional, but they take on, and they need to release in one kind of emotional outburst. Uh, um, It also might take the form of disconnection or distancing from the irritant person, kind of like a timeout. This is a tribal energy, and the connection demands that to be part of the tribe, we live by the tribal rules or we get out of that tribe. So this energy, kind of builds this frustration. It's chill till the external, and then it's like outburst, release, reset. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. The bear trap has closed. It will eventually release and go back to the consistency of its flow. Then we have the individual wave, which is the most dramatic wave of the three. Big swings upward towards joy and euphoria, and then big swings down to pain, sadness, and despair. These swings are rhythmic and vary in length depending on the individual. An up and down cycle can range from daily to yearly with most falling somewhere in between. One of the struggles of this wave is at the bottom. It can feel like it's never going to come back up. My mom had one of these individual waves, and she would often experience deep melancholy and like, I can't get out of it. I'm imbalanced. I have a hormonal imbalance. She was diagnosed with a hormonal imbalance and treated with Effexor. And so she had this wave, and too much mental focus on this can actually prolong and create a pattern of like being stuck in that cycle. It's important for someone with this wave to understand it will go up and down. And if you are down, it's on its way up. Any part of the emotional solar plexus is energy in motion. We are constantly moving up and down and everywhere in between. It's motion. So, the one thing about having a defined emotional solar plexus is that we can rely on movement. We're not going to be here forever. Like today, I'm in probably the lowest part of my low, and as an emotional manifester, as a second line, um, this happens to always sync up with like hermit me. So it's hermit me, rest cycle, as well as the crash of my wave, and they all kind of sync up probably twice a year, once in the winter, once in the summer. And I'm like, oh gosh, let's talk about the crash wave. When I learned I had the crash wave from my first reading with Teresa, who has been on this podcast, I was like, but now I'm like, yes. So the collective wave. So the collective wave is like an escalator. It rises up towards joy and happiness in a slow and steady way. I'm always vibing for like 6 months. But this energy is not sustainable. And like a bubble, it pops, falling down abruptly to sadness and sorrow. The bottom of the wave does not last as long as the wave begins building again, as the wave begins building again towards joy. When the wave drops, it can lead one to question what happened. In relationship, it might be the question of, did I do something wrong? But in the case of this wave, it's just energy has run its course and needs to drop back to rebuild again. If I had known this, now if you have channel, I'll tell you guys the waves really quick. If you have 36 to 35, which is the channel of transitories or the jack of all trades, you have a collective wave. If you have channel 41 to 30, you have a collective wave. And I'm going to be talking about that particularly today. 3740, 59.6, 1949. You guys are the tribal waves. And then you have 3955 as well as 1222 as the individual waves. Okay, so I've hit my breaking point. I woke up today and I was like sad. I had been experiencing a lot of anger and just frustration. And I was like, huh, what's going on? And that's my signpost as a manifestor to take a step back. I was really, really up in everyone's sacral energy. And it was my body saying, hey, we need to slow down and integrate for a moment. And, I used to think that this crash wave was this punishment of like, why will I never be able to sustain my energy? And it's not. It's a beautiful way to turn inward and reflect. And for me as a manifester, get really clear on the next urge. And so I'm sitting in my bed today, and in the past, I maybe would have tried to work or tried to do something, but I'm like, I'm just going to sit in my bed and do whatever my body and my soul wants to do today. And today that looks like studying human design. I was like reading a lot. I didn't get out of my bed. I've been reading a lot about the channel of money, which I have, which is 45 to 21, and all about how 45 to 21 people may like release stress through shopping. So I've been experimenting with that. And I love that human design invites us into experimentation. It's not like do this, it's like experiment and see. I've worked really, really hard to not use shopping as a coping mechanism. So today I got online and one of my favorite sites was having a sale and I added everything to my cart. And then I'll ride my emotional authority and see, do I really need to buy it? But the process of adding things to my cart really helped to kind of just release this energy of like, I don't have enough, which is kind of the shadow frequency of 45 to me. So yeah, I've just been really chill today. I don't want to talk to anyone. Um, my cat Bo, who's 100% a projector, deeply. We've been vibing in non-sacral energy in my bedroom. Yeah, and I'm just feeling like, no, I don't want to do it. The crash wave used to be something that I feared. I was like, why can't I have sustainable energy like every other generator, like every person with sacral authority who doesn't experience this deep state of emotional uh depth as well as like emotional sinking is how I would explain. It's like You know, I was in a huge urge for a couple weeks. I'm talking about retreat, I'm talking about collaboration, I'm talking about work and readings and all of the things that are really aligned for me. And then right after it's crash, disconnect, take space. And as I've been experimenting with my design for almost 2 years, which I'm really excited about, I'm realizing this is what I need. And as I say that this, there's a lot of emotion that comes up because there's this collective conditioning for women to keep going, to bypass this emotional feeling and to stay consistent. I'm a quad, right? Manifestor. Consistency is not my game. It's not. And this is why human design has been so impactful for me because when I came to engage with this energy, I felt broken. I am a 2-4 emotional manifestor, 8% of the population. And my life felt like a prison sentence of people trying to control me. I was told I was too loud, too much. I had a lot of wounding around relationships. And the second I had my chart read, first by Erin Claire Jones, who did my blueprint, it's an amazing way to start. And then by Teresa, I realized I just felt empowered. And to learn about the emotional authority took the longest because you have to experiment with your wave, right? Maybe your wave is that, consistent tribal wave. And, your wave ends up kind of outbursting in association to the people around you. Or, maybe you have these collective waves where you build, 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 and then collapse. For me, it was in those collapses, I would leave relationships, I would leave businesses, I would give up. The idea of this collective wave is always racing to expectation, rising to expectation. It's having all this hope, 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 and then falling into despair when that hasn't quite manifested. Um, so I think the key to staying consistent with myself is to um, engage with projects more neutrally, to not throw my whole emotionality into it. Um, it's not to say that I don't put creative energy into it or it's not something I'm passionate about, but it's to say, okay, I'm going to manifest something as a manifester, and it might not have, it might be unexpected. But who's to say what's going to happen if I'm kind of entering this correctly and riding my wave, which guys, sometimes I ride my wave on something for 6 months to a year. And that might sound really scary for somebody who is learning emotional authority, right? Like I have to ride my wave 6 months to a year before I moved to Asheville, 4 months. And I had this download the other day because I remember riding my wave and it was like Asheville, Asheville, Asheville. The universe was sending me signs. I was like riding my wave. I hit my despair, right? Like I hit that, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm going to give up. Came out of that and was able to step forth on this new escalator of hope up just to meet moving into an apartment that didn't work. So crash again. And moving through that, I found my dream home. So it's not that your authority will always lead you to ease. Your authority is going to get you to where you need to go. And there might be, for me, I have the right angle cross of the unexpected. There might be unexpected things along the journey. Not everything is going to be perfect or easy. And that's something I had to learn when I was engaging with human design because I would be so angry, right? Like I followed my authority. I waited. I was patient. And then this hurt me, but did it really hurt me? If it taught me how to, if living somewhere uncomfortable taught me how to manage my nervous system, it created connections, it created all of these things. But yeah, the second I moved to that apartment in Asheville, OpenG was like, fuck no. And I was like, I'm here for a year, so this is gonna be fun. And then I live now in the most beautiful place. I'm often reminded of how much the universe loves me by my home. Something I'm like, oh, so grateful for. So yeah, talking about that collective wave, you ride up, right up, right up, right up, and then crash. This is how I operate in business. I will write up a project, write up a project, write a project, and then crash down. And so for me, what I'm learning and what I'm teaching is like, how do we, in that low, hold ourselves to, first of all, take the space? Because when I'm in that low, I can be emotional. And I live with someone who has an open emotional center. So I want to make sure I'm like keeping my emotionality to me. I'm riding my wave. I'm connecting to me through this process. And so what does that look like? It looks like shutting my door. I don't have to engage in conversations today. That has been so empowering now. I do have to inform I'm a manifestor. So I did send a text of like, hey, I'm in my emotional low right now and take some time and space for me. And taking that time and space, you can hear my voice. I am so exhausted. There's this energy of tiredness and this need for my body to be validated and seen and heard in these moments, and really to, tend to my heart, because I'm trying to think of how the wave crashed, though there's not often like a concrete moment of how the wave crashed. Oh, I went to an event and it was out of alignment, and I was like, oh, fuck, crash, expectation. And it just started kind of crashing naturally down after not riding my wave and making that decision. And so, how do I honor myself in my lows? I take the time and space to rest and to journal and to get creative. I wrote a book from emotional lows. I am here recording this podcast and sharing and stepping into this really activated, authentic version of myself in showing up through my emotional low. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm really tired, not feeling the greatest. Can I just let myself be in that? Release the pressure to exist in a certain way, or any, perfectionism of like who I should be on a Friday. You know, I'm tired and I am processing some pain. And that's okay. It's okay to be sad, even if there's no reason for that. And when I started engaging with human design, it was so validating for me to know that this was correct for me. That correctness, that validation as an emotional being, of being like, hey, being sad is okay, and you don't need to be labeled or institutionalized or medicated. It is just the way that you are. And creating that acceptance for myself took me to the next level when it comes to life. Just taking a moment to just let the emotion exist of that feeling of validation for being emotional and being projected on my whole life as being bipolar, too sensitive, too emotional, too much. I'm like, here is this chart. Here is the definition in my space. I'm emotional. It's okay. 50% of the population has a defined emotional center. So you can imagine why the world is in absolute chaos. Because people don't know how to manage their emotions. People don't know how to sit in the low. They want to change it. They want to change it. They want to change it. They want to shift it. They want to cope with it in ways that are unhealthy. And it's going to show up every single time. It's going to show up. So, how do we learn the tools to say hello to it? Say, hi, I know you're here. It doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't mean anything about who I am as a person, how I show up in the world. Like it's just chemistry. It's just my energy. And that's okay. As I was kind of brushing up on the solar plexus today, I pulled my mom's chart up. For those of you who don't know, my mom has passed. She's been on the other side for almost 4 years. And she would come to me and she would say, yeah, I'm just like melancholy. I can't remember the word. Mom, can you please channel it to me? She would say, thank you. She would say, I'm feeling out of balance, feeling out of balance. And, looking at her chart, she has these pretty intense channels coming out of her emotional solar plexus. She's an emotional generator. And I sit with it and everything happens in the timing that it happens for our soul's evolution, our growth. And I sit with it sometimes. I just think if she would have known that it was okay to experience life through that lens, that it was perfectly acceptable, like, would she still be alive? And though she didn't have the tools to, hit that deep melancholy and come back because, her mind was pretty conditioned to say that was wrong and that was not okay. I remember, sitting with her towards the end of her life, and I was studying. I was listening to a podcast called Unfuck Your Brain by Kara Lowenthal, and I was like, Mom, tell your mind to fuck off. You can. And that was really the start of my awakening. Is before she had passed, I had gone to Boulder. I'm cackling because, like, as I think about this, I was really unhappy. I was taking Adderall. I had this like business, and it was growing and growing and growing, and I couldn't sustain it. I was punishing myself because I was like, why don't you have the energy? Like, people do this all the time. And I had this, pressure from a very defined generator who I was married to, and just kind of this pressure to keep going, keep going, keep going. And I was melting and crashing, grinding my teeth in my sleep. That's not okay at all. So I was like, okay, you know, it's a couple years prior to her death in 2018. I was like, I'm just going to go to the psychiatrist. Obviously, something is wrong with me. I have a degree in psychology. I know what it is. I have ADHD. And of course, having extensive knowledge of the DSM-5, I was like, here, I'll just say I can't focus, I'm fidgety, my energy is chaotic, all of the things, right? And prescription to Adderall. That easy, 5 minutes. No information on the harm of this substance to my body. Nothing. Just here you go, try it out, get back to me, or I'll put you on a different one. So, um, you know, what's interesting about it is there was always this lever in me. My mom was an alcoholic, and there was always this kind of lever in me, like this threshold that I would never cross when it came to drugs and alcohol. I used to party a lot in high school. I used to drink a lot, but I always wanted to maintain control for the most part, right? Like clarity, clarity. So I would only take 10 millimeters or 10 milligrams of this Adderall. I would take 10 milligrams I took it for about a year or so. And that just started this spiral into, okay, now I have anxiety from the Adderall and I'm going to get on Boost Bar. And I went on Boost Bar, and then the panic attack started. And so I'm having panic attacks. I'm running this business. I clearly can't keep up with the energy overload. I'm working with women one-on-one. little did I know at the time I was literally channeling, trance channeling while I was doing photography, and that's why everyone who came to me was like, "Oh my god, this was so healing." I was literally trance channeling and giving them messages the whole time as I'm and I would just show up at my house after, and I would just pass out. I could like, the relationship with my husband was failing. All of these things were happening, and it was really hard. And so I started in July of 2018 to listen to Unfuck Your Brain, step one for me. So thank you, Kara. That was fucking dope. And yeah, that was kind of my saving grace for a little bit of like, why the fuck am I like this? Why can't I cope with everyday life? Everyone around me seems to be coping so well. You know, my husband at the time, super successful in his military career and just kind of just always going and going and going. And I was like, I can't. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm laying on my couch. I can't navigate. I can't talk to people. I don't want to be around anyone. I want to shut down. And so I went to this, not to even mention the inflated ego of stepping into having wealth for the first time in my life. And getting all of the things that I saw, you know, I grew up in Newport Beach, California, getting all of the things for the first time that I saw all my friends get easily. Um, Finally having financial success, paying off all my debt, becoming debt free, all these things. Like I could buy whatever I wanted. And that was its own initiation into handling money, right? I have the money line in human design. I've mentioned it. It's one of my two channels. And so I came into wealth, all of this stress. I go to this boudoir photography retreat in Boulder, and we're all getting together. I'm meeting up with my dear friend there who has been so wonderful throughout the process of boudoir. And we would always kind of talk. And, you know, she became a mom and then had a second baby. And so, you know, she was really struggling with, you know, postpartum depression and feeling like she couldn't step into, you know, her life's work because she had to dedicate so much of her time to, you know, raising the kids. And that I really saw that as a struggle for her. And so we were at this retreat and I was trying to help her. And I was saying like, okay, well, why can't you do it this way? I don't understand. And it was being met with a lot of resistance. And there was a big fight. There's a big fight in Boulder. And I said some things that I've since apologized for. And yeah, it was a defining moment for me as we both took our own Ubers to the airport of something needs to change. Everything in my life is collapsing down, and not even 2 weeks later, my mom died. One thing I tell people when they're feeling their emotions that are theirs is it'll feel good to release. This is my pain. It feels good to let it go. Versus like the stuckness of someone else's energy in my space. But yeah, a couple weeks later, my mom passed and she committed suicide. And she told me a month before, you know, my therapist had told me, she said, you know, I had a therapist at the time, and she told me, she's like, yeah, like, you know, she's probably using that for attention and, you know, people who want to kill themselves. They, um, they usually have plans. So I normally will ask somebody if they have a plan. And so I'm just casually, my mom had relapsed. She was sober for 3 years. And I had asked her a month prior, and she was like, she was a type 1 diabetic. And she said,
like, so casually. You wouldn't pick up on this at all. She was like, um, yeah, I would just overdose on my insulin. My mom struggled with her mental health for a long time because she was a fucking trans channel. She was incredibly psychic and incredibly sensitive, and she did not have the tools in the world to not accept her. And so, of course, I incarnated into this line. I've seen what happens when we don't have the tools for who we are here. And so that was a really difficult time in my life. Um, the angels were there for me. Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Archangel Raphael, Uriel, all of them. I remember just the feeling of slowness. I was really into podcasts. And I was listening to a podcast on grief, and they were just talking about grief fog. And I remember being on a treadmill, trying to get back to the gym, just like my mind trying to be like, move through it, right? Instead of being with it. And I was like, I don't know if I can survive this. I don't know. Um, my family, my family at the time, they didn't come to her funeral because they said they couldn't handle it. My brother at the time, while planning her funeral, told me that he wanted to take his life as well. There's a statistic, which I don't even know, that they say, like, be careful, because when one person does it, it can ripple out and kind of create this energy of like, do it too. And so we had to call. She had told me this is the way she would do it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. For someone, like, how do I get her into therapy? How do I do this? The pressure of her surviving was on my shoulders. Her parents rejected every part of that mental experience, and no one else could relate to it in the way that I could, having lived with it. And so that pressure was on my shoulders of like her survival. So I felt like I failed. And that failure kind of still eats at me sometimes. And so I had this spiritual awakening. And I was just blown open because I was like, something has to exist. Because my mom, underneath all of the conditioning, underneath all of the programming, underneath all of the demons, was pure love. And I saw that. And you can't unsee that. And so my mom was the person who taught me unconditional love. Wow, tangent. Reading her chart this morning, I was like, I feel like if she had known, and hearing her now, it wouldn't really have made a difference to some souls. The pain of their experience is too much, and that's okay. I accept that. I accept the choices that she made, because I love her. Because I love her. That's what love is. Yeah, so starts my spiritual awakening. And then after that, I get off Adderall, I stop drinking caffeine, I go vegan for a while. I stopped doing my business. It's over it. I was like, I am psychic, and that's where I should be focusing my energy. And that was really difficult to start to tell people. Not only was I psychic, then I had a sexual awakening. Came out as bisexual, and that was a whole other thing. And I was like, oh my God, it's just one thing after another out of this throat chakra. Can we take a pause? And after coming out as bisexual, then it was like, I'm getting separated. The deconditioning process of my life was catalyzed really by Boulder, Colorado. that fucking lands. That trip woke me up for sure. Yeah. The frequency of Boulder is beyond if you're sensitive like me. I'm laughing so hard. So many of my friends live in the Denver Boulder area, so you know. Hmm. So yeah, I separated from my husband, and I moved to Asheville. And through that experience, I get activated in human design in 2019 and 2019, 2020. I had red hair at the time, so I'm pretty sure it was 2020. No, it was 2019. Yeah. And so here we are, almost 3 years in. I don't even know, you guys. I don't care about linear time. I'm a quad right. And so yeah, as I'm sitting in this low and talking this out, I'm realizing that I am discharging my solar plexus. I'm wringing it out. I'm clearing the energy that is saying, hello, and putting me into a space where I need to process some things. And it always comes down to my mother's death. Every freaking time it's my parents. I'm like, guys. So yeah, if you are emotional, I just want to give you permission to explore that however you want. I want to explore it without the lens of the limiting psychological diagnostics. I want to explore it from a space of loving and accepting myself for being who I am right in this moment. I don't need a diagnosis or any other person outside of me telling me what is okay for me and what is not. Though human design has given me the language, it's still not telling me what I am and what I'm not. It's inviting me to experiment with my own sense of being who I am. And it's giving me a new frame. I don't feel like human design gives me a label that I have to wear. It gives me a frame and it invites me into experimenting with that. And through that lens, I've experienced so much growth and self-acceptance. So that is what human design has done for me. And that is the collective wave or the crash wave. And now I feel better. So thanks for sitting and crying with me. That's my story. I haven't spoken that out loud, like in that way, like ever. So I want to thank you for listening and knowing that if you want to separate your energy from me, all you got to do is think of a object that is vast enough to hold energy. I use a rose, put it out in front of you, and put all of the energy from this conversation in that rose. Take it outside of your space, maybe over the mountains or into the desert or over the ocean, and de-energize it, blow it up. I like to blow mine into fireworks. Or just de-energizing any charge or any energy that was brought up from this conversation so that you can go into your day being you, being in your space, not picking up on any emotional energy that was released. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If you want more information or would like your chart read, I am going to start opening that up soon. So we'll talk then. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Connection, the podcast. We want to remind you that any statements or opinions shared on this podcast are from our own experiences or that of our guests, and we invite you to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. If you love our show and want to connect with us further, please reach out through our website or Instagram linked in the show notes. We're excited to announce our group program Metamorphosis will be launching in the fall. To learn more, please go to alexandriakenyon.com/metamorphosis. See you next time.